Oh, this is already on.
Yeah, you're already, you're live.
I'm live. Are we waiting for some more people to come in before we?
No, you can start. You're right on time. Don't wander in aimlessly.
Thank you for your patience as I'm sucking on a lozenge and sipping tea because this air conditioning is contributing to the tail end of a cough that I'm just getting over.
Oh.
Hi. I
Hi.
recognize some of the faces I've seen around this weekend.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to say, Tom's not always in the room when we do these panels. He's about to desert me again. And I just want to say, this has been such a well-organized and beautiful convention, thanks to Tom and Tracy and the rest of the Green Mustard crew. And I imagine that you all agree with me. So let's give it up. And it's just such a nice feel, very welcoming and down to earth and friendly. It's really nice to be here.
We try not to suck.
So, what would I was giving some thought to what this panel might be, but what would help me before I embark on my 1 hour non-stop monologue? I won't do that. Is to know what people might be interested in. So, my first question is there anyone here who might be interested in pursuing voice work professionally? Put up your hand. So, almost half of you. That's quite a few. And
Just almost.
almost, or contemplating it, okay. And the rest of you, what would be your primary interest in the next hour? Is there something that I could speak to that would be of interest to you? Let me know.
I'm a student producer, and I'm interested in like the business aspect, like you've been talking about in your other panels. Like
Okay. Student producer of films, that kind of thing?
Music and film studies.
Music and film studies, okay. All right. Anything?
All around.
Yep, great, thanks. Anything else?
Voice acting, well, since I've been watching anime, I thought I might be interested in hearing somebody else's voice in some audio or other animations.
Okay, so you're interested in knowing more about it because you haven't quite made a decision yet?
Yes.
Okay. Any other?
That's why I like to try it with you to see how I'm good enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any other general interests? Yeah.
Maybe just like maybe what skills I could work on, and you know what my strengths and weaknesses are, as like me thinking about it personally. So
And
that
maybe
as
what
well.
attitude.
Or would you like to just hear how I do you? Because like I felt it was a little interrupted yesterday. Would you like to hear it?
Tell you what, why don't we, so what I'm hearing is there's some interest in doing a little practical work, like saying a couple lines on mic and
Yeah.
doing some practical and training stuff that way. I don't have scripts with me, but I think that we can improvise this a little bit and learn about some mic techniques maybe. So maybe when we get to that point, we can give that a try. How's that?
No problem.
Yes.
Maybe voiceover for singing, like karaoke CDs or Barbie movies, Disney movies.
Cool.
Voiceover for singing, like karaoke CDs and that kind of thing. I don't have any personal experience with that. I wish I did. That sounds like so much fun. But I imagine there are some similarities to the rhythm band, and I can't recreate that here either. I don't have the technology to do that, but maybe we can talk about some timing. I'll try to work that in a little bit. What little I might be able to contribute. Okay, thanks. Yes.
Something that I'm really kind of worried about is how much I can do at an entry level to get into the position to
How much you can do at an entry level to get into the business? And were you at the panel earlier with the 3 voice actors a couple hours ago? Okay, I'll try to do a brief synopsis of that. And anything else? Yes.
The best way to get networking and to be successful once you already have your basics and you've made the decision to pursue.
Okay, so networking and basics. And did you happen to be at the panel earlier? Oh, you asked that question about resume. Yes, okay. So that pretty covered. So a little bit of business, a little recapping of the business, and then some technique on mic, and less of what I was thinking I might actually talk about, which was interpretation of a script, but I'd like to talk about that a little bit. Business. Okay, so maybe I'll just try to do a little recap of what I think I heard in the panel with the 3 voice actors. Thank you, Dan and Daryl, myself. This is the lovely Angie. So we provided you with and if you want to fill in the blanks for me, feel free to do so, because you're all paying close attention. You can tell. So, I'll give a little recap of my experience getting into the voice industry. So I started out in Fort Collins, Colorado, of all places, in a little small college town. My mother was a community theater actor, and she invited me to audition for a play one day, and I auditioned, and I got the part of this little boy, and it was a great experience. And then we moved back to Calgary, Alberta, where I grew up, and there was a group called the Young Canadians of the Calgary Stampede. They were a little bit like Up With People without the religious affiliation, and I was lucky enough to have a scholarship with them for 8 years of singing and dancing lessons, which was key to leading me into this area professionally. And then I went to university after high school, and I studied English and political science. But in the summers, I would go to a place called the Banff School of Fine Arts, which was another training ground, and I was focused mainly on musical theater at that time. So I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing it. I wasn't anticipating doing it professionally. In fact, I thought I might go to law school at one point. And then I was offered this job based on one of those summer stints at the Banff Center. And I took the job at a theater in Edmonton, a musical about Marilyn Monroe, and I played the young Norma Jean, and all of a sudden I was at a point in my life where I thought, gee, this might be really interesting to pursue professionally. So my first professional job was just as I was finishing university, so 21-ish, 22, and at that point I moved from Calgary to Toronto, which is more of an entertainment center in Canada. There's more television, film, radio, theater work in Toronto than probably any other place in Canada. So that was the beginning of my career. So it sounds like I started off with a bang, but then I promptly waitress tables for a number of years as I pursued this passion and hopeful career in Toronto. And keep in mind that I said I started really at the age of 9. So I had almost 15 years of training under my belt by the time I tried to work professionally. And even then it was tough. And so I started out doing commercials, kind of on, actually the very first thing I did was try to get an agent. And I was lucky enough to have some experience and some photos and so on from the jobs that I'd done in Alberta, Western Canada, to show to agents in Toronto when I moved there. And I was lucky enough to get in on the ground floor with an agent there. And through her I started to secure auditions for commercials, voiceovers for commercials, animation eventually, on-camera work, etc., etc. So it kind of grew from there, and then eventually after a few years I didn't have to waitress anymore, and I was able to make a living acting. So it was a gradual progression. As I said in the other panel, I really consider myself to be fortunate, because if you look at the stats of income earning for the people who happen to be members of the acting unions, I'm in a very small percentage of people who makes a decent living and is able to buy groceries and pay the rent and that kind of thing. And most people who enter this industry don't even get into the unions. And once they're in the unions, they generally earn an income that's considered to be below the poverty level. And that's just sort of the reality of the entertainment industry. And it's hard to believe that sometimes when you read magazines like Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt, all these people who make a lot of money for their work. But as I said earlier, it's almost like winning the lottery. A lot of very talented, hardworking people. And so I would share with you, if you really think you'd like to pursue this, make sure you're passionate about it and there's nothing else you want to do, because it's a really tough industry and it only gets harder the older you get. And I probably sound a bit jaded and cynical, and I'm not. It's also a really wonderful industry with wonderful people. It's a creative opportunity. There's tremendous opportunity to explore your craft and work on your craft. But the reality of the business is, it's really tough. So if you choose to go into it, I just urge you to keep your eyes open and keep doing a reality check every once in a while. And it's probably really helpful to have another skill to buy the groceries and pay the rent. And going to college or university and learning a trade or getting a degree are probably really good steps to have taken in your life. Excuse me. So that being said, let's talk. You'll see me. I'm all of 5'2", so it's easier to see Dan when he's on the panel. So I'll recap a little bit of the business. So when I moved to Toronto, and as I said earlier, There's neurotechnology, which can be really helpful in pursuing a business of any sort. But I would say that the main key to being successful in anything you do is persistence, and particularly in this industry. So I imagine that the steps would be, if you wanted to pursue producing, acting, writing, directing, to look around you and see where the opportunities are close to you, in college, university, high school, community theater, those kinds of things. Really sweaty, that's your patience here. And to take as many classes as possible with people who are legitimate professionals who can really help you understand the craft of acting or the business of acting and producing or writing, those kinds of things. Take advantage of all the non-professional opportunities through colleges, universities. They're usually bulletin boards. We're making a film, we need actors, that kind of thing. Even if you want to be a producer, I think one of the best things to do as a producer is to get out there and act and direct and be a grip on a non-union film and do everything that you have to know about as a producer, because as a producer you're hiring the sound technician or the musicians or the actors or whatever you're producing, and if you do their jobs, just for fun even, you will have a better understanding of what they do and you can be a better producer. So I urge all of you to do all of those positions if you can. You learn. From being an actor, you learn if you're somebody who holds a light and lights an actor on a film set, or if you can learn a little bit about the technical elements of recording. Yes?
You said school, college, or
Yeah?
maybe a trade school, but nowadays I figure out people are looking for, other people looking desperately for other people that are doing the voice acting. If that's true, where do they usually do it, or where can you look in the internet to find out?
So you're asking about specifically about internet sources for voiceover work and that kind of thing?
Yes, voice acting work. And
I'm not the best person to ask about that, and it's partly because I'm in a privileged position of working through my agents now and not necessarily looking for that kind of work on the net. I imagine that those sources exist, but I'll leave it to you to network amongst yourselves. And here's the other thing, networking. Somebody asked about networking. Maybe at the end of this panel we can ask for a show of hands again as to who's interested in pursuing this professionally. You can all kind of gather in a little corner and exchange emails and exchange information about these kinds of internet sites and these kinds of sources. I mean, that's a great source. Daryl, who spoke, he's really in tune with a lot of internet sources as well. I think he's a good person to ask. He seems to be very aware of those kinds of things. But I think you're gonna learn sources that I have no idea about. I just learned how to text recently. I know it's embarrassing,
it's fine.
but in a sense, I'm a different generation from some of you, and even those of you who might be more contemporaries age-wise, and there are new techniques out there, and I'm not starting from scratch right now, so I don't know what they all are. But I think you have a lot more options than I do. Certainly, you have research available at your fingertips with the internet, for sure. So there probably are websites that teach you how to voice act, that kind of thing. There probably are. So networking, use this. I'm going to remind you again at the end of the panel, use this. Exchange email information with people that you share common interests with. Get out there, take advantage when you're in a play, when you're in a student film, take that film around to different people. Invite people to your play, offer to get them free tickets. Do it kindly, do it respectfully, enthusiastically, respectfully of their time, and you may be surprised at the kind of interest that you get. And put on productions with your friends. Producing, put together a demo reel with your friends. Somebody who's more technically advanced than you are. Maybe you're the voice actor and that person wants a little experience doing the technical work. Those are the kinds of things that I would recommend. I'm trying to do kind of a recap of what we talked about earlier.
Yeah, there's
So-
like YouTube and stuff like that that could also help.
And YouTube was something that Dan suggested, great opportunities for DIY, do-it-yourself kinds of things. I would just caution you to also just do a reality check around that, in that there are a few people who have gained some notoriety through doing YouTube films and presentations, and that's great, but they're still in the minority. So I wouldn't imagine that what you do in YouTube is necessarily going to get you that next big feature film role or that next big anime contract, but it's all good experience, And it's great to get your work out there and to see what the reaction might be, and just if you can take it in that light and just take it as a life experience that we can learn from, then that's maybe a good way to look at it. So, are there any other business things that I might have missed that any of you can remind me of that we might touch on? Yes?
You made a mention in portfolio, you said you had some face shots, but we're using our voice. You say that the face shots actually, like, when you're constructing a portfolio for voice acting, is it the same exact portfolio as if you're modeling or acting?
No, there's slight variations, so it's a good point. You get hired for your voice, and those agents or casting directors want to hear your voice, so a reel that you have. But I think it helps to send a headshot and a resume with a reel, just so that they know that you're a trained person, or that it just gives them more information to work with. Or maybe even send a resume if you don't really want them to know what you look like for whatever reason. Just send a resume, just send some information or a nice note. But there might be other opportunities. You might find, if you're a voice actor, you might want to act in a play, you might want to do a commercial on camera, that kind of thing. So it's just a professional calling card. And it's a good point. You don't need that right away. It is an expense for sure, but it's something to consider. I even know some people who have little business cards with their photo on it, just so that they're remembered. You want to make an impression and you want people to remember you in some ways. So just think about the best ways to invest your money and whether or not you think that might be helpful. But you're right, when you're doing voice work, that's not the most important.
No.
Yes?
Celebrities were kind of touched on a little bit, like big name celebrities, when they do voiceover work, obviously they want them to sound like them because they hired them because they're a celebrity. So if you're just starting out, is it important to have a huge range, or, I mean, obviously the celebrities don't really have a huge range, they are what they are. But do they get the job because they're celebrities, or can you have a smaller range and still be successful?
In my opinion, they mostly get the job because they sell tickets. So it's their name value. So it's the distributors who are responsible for getting the product out there and selling it to various groups of people who value the names. So they're paid the big bucks for their name. And in fact, they might not be the best voice actors. And in fact, the writers and the directors might not have envisioned that type of a voice for that role. And the distributor/producer comes along and says, yeah, but so-and-so is going to sell in these foreign markets, so we're going to use that name. So they don't always want you to sound like the celebrities. It's really the name value of the celebrities. Now, that being said, there's some very talented actors who also happen to be celebrities, and that's kind of a win-win situation for everyone. What I imagine is, when you're starting out, you will likely be pigeonholed, and it's a stereotyping game that goes on, whether you're on camera, off camera. So you're the lead ingenue, or you're the best friend, or you're the leading man, or you're the character actor who plays 25 to 30, or you're the spokesperson with the very stereotypical traditional deep voice. Usually male, now sometimes female. And you might be the character after the female, that kind of thing. So, and at different times in your life, you'll be pigeonholed as a different type. So what makes sense to me is, at first, to figure out what type you might be, how people envision you, not necessarily how you see yourself. It might be quite different. For example, there was a time in my life where I was about 30 pounds heavier than I am now, and all I ever got cast as was the best friend. Whatever that means to you, that was it. I was the best friend. But you know what? I did pretty well as the best friend. And it wasn't such a bad niche to be in. Now I'm probably the mother. In fact, I am the mother type. So that's what people would normally cast me as, I would say. And I've had some success in my career playing the villain in a few different things, which is really kind of fun.
Yeah.
A streak of villains for a while. So sometimes people cast you maybe against type, or they think if you don't immediately come across that way, it's kind of interesting to cast you that way, which is fun too. So I would say, don't limit yourself, but be aware of how people see you or hear you, and where you might most likely be hired. And then, let them know that that's a real strength of yours, first of all, and ideally, if you build a career, you have the opportunity to expand a little bit, but sometimes it's hard. You look at some of the name actors, like Jennifer Aniston, who tried to do some serious comedy for a while, or serious drama for a while, people aren't as accepting once they know that she's a great comic actress. Kind of a tricky thing sometimes. So go with your strengths at first, I would say. Any other thoughts or questions around the business end of it at this moment? Yes?
Would you suggest getting an agent?
Would I suggest getting an agent? Ultimately, you have greater access to auditions with an agent. But agents are hard to get without work, so it's sort of a catch-22 situation, which is one of the reasons I suggest doing as many non-professional productions as possible, and encourage agents to come out and see your work, or do student films and get a reel together, or student demo reels for voice work and that kind of thing. Find a community of people that you'd like to work with. Maybe set up, maybe rent a studio together, 10 of you or something, and you each have half an hour kind of thing. You get a cut rate, that kind of thing. So there are ways to do it. But yes, you have to kind of create work to get the agent. Yes?
How hard and expensive?
Well, there's no money required to get an agent.
That's good.
But there is money often required to amass the tools you need to get an agent, like the demo reel. So you have to either know somebody with good recording equipment and maybe a little home studio, or as I say, get together and share the cost that way. There's money in hiring a photographer to do headshots, money in printing for resumes, so money for classes, that kind of thing. So keep your day job, go to school, and then decide where you can most wisely spend your money. And it doesn't hurt to repeat what Dan said in the other seminar. Do your research. If you're going to spend your hard-earned money on anything, make sure that the people teaching the workshops are legitimate, they have a reputation, check out opinions about their workshops and their professional credits and that kind of thing. Just be smart about how you spend your money. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. What I thought I might talk to you about in terms of technique is basically how to break down a script. So if you were auditioning for something, what you might do to prepare for that audition. And so I would hope that this might be helpful to you on if you happen to be in a play, or if you were auditioning for an animated character, or if you're trying to replicate the voice of somebody else, or any of those acting things. To me, the techniques are very similar. You just kind of adapt them a little bit to different mediums. So in the future, I think I might kind of do this with some kind of a visual. So you'll just have to use your imagination with me. As we imagine, there's a big script behind my head. And let's say it's a one-page script. And let's say it's a monologue. And let's say, for lack of a better example, it's a Sailor Moon monologue.
Okay.
And let's say Sailor Moon is really anxious that she's going to be late for school, and she's talking to Luna, her cat. And let's say that she has 3 sort of paragraphs. So the first one is she's running around, oh, I'm going to be late for school, and she's gathering her things and really upset and trying to find her things. And in the second paragraph, she starts to worry about what the teacher's going to say because she's late. Oh, I have to work on this test. I have this, and she's trying to make a cram. And then the third thing is she's just trying to get out the door. So you can kind of take any scene, I think, in any play, and you can break it down this way into different sections based on what the character's major objective is in that whole play, and then what the character's objective is in that scene, and then what the character's objective is in that part of the scene, and then what the character's objective is in that particular moment, and it all comes down to objectives. Now this, I should preface this by saying, this technique of breaking down a script, I've adapted from many years of studying with different teachers at the HB Studio in New York. So Uta Hagen was one of the primary teachers there, and there's another wonderful teacher there named Carol Rosenfeld, who I studied with first in Toronto and then in New York. And if any of you are seriously interested, they have a great summer institute at the HB Studio, and Carol Rosenfeld is now the head of the institute. And if you ever go there, say hi for me. She's still friendly. So she talks about, Uta and Carol talk about objectives. So another way of saying that is, what do you want? And another way of looking at that is, what do you want in your life, and how can you learn from your life experience, observing yourself, becoming more self-aware daily, and take what you know about yourself and put yourself into new circumstances that are dictated by the script. So if you come from a place where you want to be truthful as an actor, which is a place I come from, want to be believable and want to be realistic for your audience, then I think you have to create circumstances around you that are believable to you. And where you start, and where Hagen, I argue, would start, is in knowing yourself, in observing yourself, in understanding what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what affects your moods, and how you behave in certain circumstances. And if you start observing yourself in those circumstances very, as much as you can objectively, then you can bring that self-study to your work as an actor, because really your tool as an actor is you. It is your voice, it is your body, it's your psyche, it's your emotional life, it's your life experience, it's all of that. So it's kind of fun, it's kind of daunting sometimes. Sometimes we learn things about ourselves we don't really want to know, but that's part of our toolkit. That's what we take with us everywhere we go. So let's say, go back to the example of breaking down this scene for Sailor Moon. So I would imagine, I would get the script and I'd go, Sailor Moon, what are my circumstances? And I would ask myself questions like, who am I? How old am I? What gender am I? What's my name? What's my body type? What do I like? What don't I like? Who do I like? Why do I like that person? What's my relationship with that person? So, Sailor Moon, who am I? I'm a schoolgirl. I'm, let's say, 11 years old at this time or whatever, and depending on the episode. Who are my friends? Sailor Scout? How about Tuxedo Mask? Ooh, that's a really complicated relationship. Sometimes I like him, sometimes I hate him, and why? What are the circumstances around that? Luna, my cat. I love Luna. Luna, my best friend. I can say anything to Luna. I'm safe with Luna. So this starts to affect how you talk to Luna. I might talk to Luna, as Sailor Moon, let's say, might talk to Luna quite differently than I might talk to Tuxedo Mask, or I might talk to the Sailor Scouts. Perhaps I can let my guard down. I feel safer with Luna. Luna's seen me at my worst. Luna's seen me at my klutziest. What are some of my character traits? I'm klutzy.
She loves to eat.
I love to eat. And Tracy can attest to yesterday, we were signing and I spilled my tea and I got ink all over my fingers. Well, we're all klutzy in our lives at something. Maybe I'm more klutzy than most.
Every day.
I can use those experiences in my interpretation of the script. This can be endless. You can keep journals on your characters. You can keep building on your characters, depending on, if this is a kind of an ongoing project. The more you write about your character, the more you will know, and the richer your characterization will be. I like the color blue. I like the color yellow. I like to eat walnuts. I don't like to eat walnuts, whatever that is. And then if that comes up in the script, or there's some relationship to it, you can draw on those kinds of things. So I would do a character analysis, first of all, and ask myself all of those questions I could possibly think to ask myself and more, and then I keep asking that. And then I look at the other characters in the scene, so in this case, Luna. I just imagine I don't have any pretenses in front of Luna. Luna's seen it all. And so there's a wonderful comfort and safety there. I can be at my worst, I can be at my best, and that gives a lot of opportunity for theatricality, because being at your worst and being at your best, those are sort of interesting situations for the audience to watch, right? They're extreme situations. I'm also a playwright, by the way, and one of the things writers look for in their writing, and directors in directing, is conflict. So in most plays, on camera, off camera, you will find some kind of conflict between the characters, or within the character, conflict within herself, within himself. So finding those conflicts within you or with the other characters is really important, and it's going to add to the dramatic tension of whatever it is you're working on. So Luna might also annoy me sometimes. Luna might take away my pen that I need for school, or be sitting on my piece of paper that I'm looking for. And finding those moments of conflict can add humor and drama to whatever you're doing. So I would make notes of those things. I'd make notes of my relationship with Luna. I'd make notes of my relationship with the character who's not necessarily on the page. So my teacher at school, oh my gosh, Miss Smith, let's say, she is so strict, she's gonna kill me if I don't get this homework assignment done. It was a little bit different than, oh, Mr. Turner, oh, he's such a pushover. Yeah, I'll get it there, but I'll tell him that the cat kind of chewed the edges and he won't really care. And so my relationship with that person who's not on the page will affect how I am reacting to the situation, which is I can't find my homework, let's say. So the relationships, the circumstances, I'm in my home, I'm alone, so I can maybe yell, my mother's not here, she won't get upset. What is the time, how late am I for school? If I think that I might get there 2 minutes before the bell, maybe there isn't the same amount of urgency as if I think, oh, I'm gonna be 5 minutes late, and I've been told that if I'm late again, I get a detention, and so it increases the urgency of that moment. So that's another thing to make note of. What are those kinds of circumstances? So let's take it from there. I'm sure there are many more circumstances. This is a great opportunity to use your imagination. What are the questions you want to ask yourself? So let's go back to that example of that script. So at the beginning, maybe I'm going to stand a bit. And I know this is voiceover, but I mentioned in an earlier panel too, one of the things I do as a voice actor is I use my body. It helps me find the truth of that moment, but I also think that it's conveyed through the voice. So if I say to you, or if I say, as Serena, I'm going to be late for school. That's it, I'm not rushing anywhere. If I've been running around the house for 10 minutes, and then at the end of 10 minutes, imagine I'm a little bit out of breath, I'm going to be late for school. I'm going to be late for school. Then there's a change in the vocal quality, right? Because your breathing changes, and you try to find some realism there. And if I'm out fighting the negaverse, there's an even greater urgency, or maybe at times a greater strength. And you can access your diaphragm and your breathing better when you're standing anyway. So voice actors always stand, by the way. There might be a couple who sit, but I don't really know any. Because you can breathe, open your lungs, get that air in there, and then you just have greater flexibility in terms of volume, in terms of tone, and all kinds of things. So, all right, back to the script again. So first section, looking for stuff. So if I'm looking for stuff, how am I looking for stuff? Am I talking to myself? What did I leave? What did I leave behind? Did I leave my watch? Did I leave my, Luna, help me find this stuff. So some of it could be an internal monologue. Some of it could be directed towards Luna. So you might go back through your script and say, am I saying this to Luna? Am I saying it to myself? Or am I actually talking to my teacher? I'm imagining what I'm going to say to my teacher when I get in there, that it wasn't my fault. Luna sat on the homework. And part of that's going to be in the script, but part of it's going to be in your interpretation. So it wasn't my fault. Luna sat on the script, just off the top of my head. Could be to myself, well, it wasn't my fault. I'm convincing myself Luna sat on the script. Or it could be to Luna, I'm angry at Luna, I'm trying to punish Luna. It wasn't my fault. Luna sat on the script. Or it could be thinking of what I'm going to say to the teacher. Well, it wasn't my fault. Luna sat on the script, defending myself. So what you might note is in those different interpretations, there's a different goal behind each sentence. So if the overall goal, let's say, of the whole story that day is I want to be the most responsible student I can be. Serena, yes?
Well, if you're interested, we could try. You and I could try. If this is alright with you, we could try it. You come to school. You act like you come to school, and you're a little late. And I'll be one of your teachers saying.
So you know what I think? Let me just finish the overall arc of how I'm describing this, and then maybe we'll try to have a couple of minutes for people who want to give it a try.
Yeah, sure.
All right? Okay. Thanks. So, if my overall goal as the character is to be the best student I can be, to be on time, to be conscientious, to do my work to the best of my ability, if that's my overall goal, then I would ask myself, in this scene, what is my smaller goal? Well, my goal is to prove to my teacher that I did the work, that I did it on time, that I can get to school on time, and that therefore, in the larger goal, I'm a really responsible, contributing member of society. So that's then kind of the secondary goal. Now in this scene, let's say the first paragraph, my goal is to gather my things and to get my tools to be ready to go out the door. second goal, second paragraph. What did I say? My goal, I was just making it up as I was on the fly. My goal is to find my stuff. My goal is to interact with Luna. So let's say Luna's hidden something, so my goal is to get my homework from Luna. And let's say the third goal then is to just get out the door. So those are the 3 second goals. Can it wait?
Mm-hmm.
Just, thanks. And then let's divide. Let's say the first paragraph is about finding my things. So let's divide that into 3 sections. The first section I'm going to imagine is maybe that internal monologue where you go, okay, last night before I went to bed, I put it on the desk over there. Now, the lines might not be that. The line might be, where's my homework? But I can decide that my goal is to ask myself the question or to revisit my steps last night. That's my goal. So if the line is, where did I put my homework? And I can interpret it as, where did I put my homework? So I'm asking myself that. Let's say the second line is, it was right here last night.
That's my
Well, I could do that again as an internal monologue. It was right here last night. But it might be a little more interesting if the second line had a different goal. So maybe it's that I dart across the room while I say it. So I'm going to look for it. That's my goal. So look for it. It was right here last night. And if you can hear, there's a little more urgency. Maybe I'm just reaching underneath a chair or something. It was right here last night. And then say the third line is, I'm sure I put it there. Once again, that could be an internal monologue. I'm sure I put it there, but if I want to give a little more variation, then maybe a different goal for that third line would be to punish myself. I'm sure I put it there. Okay, like just really kind of hurt myself with my own words, which we do sometimes, and it's not really nice, but we do. So, where's my homework internal monologue? I'm sure it was here. I'm sure I can't remember what I said, but I'm sure I had it last night, mad at myself. So within that paragraph, the point is kind of 3 different goals. Asking myself the question, looking for the homework, and kind of giving myself a kick in the pants because I've misplaced it. Does that sort of make sense so far?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's another book I'm just going to mention that I took a workshop years ago when I was taking workshops with a man named Michael Shirtleff, who I believe sadly has passed away. But this is part of his technique too, because he talks about addition technique, and it might be a good book if you can find it in print. Michael Shirtleff, Addition Technique, I think is the name of the book. But he talks about breaking things down into goals as well. So in an addition, you want to show people as many colors as you can. So you might take that first paragraph, those first 3 lines, and have 3 different goals within that first paragraph, and then 3 different goals within the second paragraph, and 3 different goals within the third paragraph. And I try to think of it in terms of, as much as possible, in one-word goals, verbs. So my goal is to annoy Luna. My goal is to find my homework. My goal is to chastise myself. My goal is to vent to the world. My goal is to think about where I left it. My goal is to hurry to get to class. My goal, etc., etc. So you get the idea, right?
Yeah.
And you can start to compile a list of verbs. And I've been teaching some workshops recently, and I have the kids give me these verbs, and we just write them all on the blackboard, and then I put them in a list, and it's endless. And there are hundreds of verbs. But what it does is it gives you an actable action. It gives you an action. So if you were doing something on stage, for example, this is a visual, but you can kind of translate it. So let's say the director wants you to walk over there for some reason. I might be walking over here, talking to you, and kind of end up at the place where the director might want me to go. I'm not sure how realistic that looks. I'm not sure how much we walk that way in real life. Whereas, if I looked around and gave myself a reason to cross over there, like, oh, there's that wrapper, and there's a cough candy inside that wrapper, then I can be talking to somebody, and I go to get that wrapper and take out my cough thing. And there was a very legitimate reason for me to cross over. So I gave myself an action that's believable, realistic, and true to the story, whatever that story might be. And I would say that you can do that in voice acting as well. You give yourself an action, something you want to do to the other character, or want to do in life, and follow that action. And not only is it more believable to the audience, perhaps more important, it's more believable to you. And if you can kind of trick yourself into believing the circumstances, then you're living truthfully in that moment, and the audience will pick up on that. So that's kind of how I would break down a script, and I would put in the sideline and the margin. I put, this is my action here, 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 and then I have little symbols that I put down for. I don't generally think about volume and that kind of thing. It's really about actions, and the volume and the intention will follow if you're trying to be truthful to what your character wants in that moment. And then once you get the job, hopefully, you'll start to make different kinds of notes. Like, okay, the director really wants me to pause between these two sentences. I put a couple of lines there. The director really wants me to emphasize this word, underline it, highlight it. The director really wants me to be gentler towards my partner in this scene, and so, gentler, that kind of thing. You'll keep building on your characterization and your actions, but if you've done your homework, and you've done the character breakdown, and you've figured out what you want, your objectives, and you figure out your goals, then you kind of let that go, and it's within you. And then you can do some of those more technical things based on the director's needs, the writer's needs, that kind of thing. And the work that you've done will come through. It will be there. So one of the joys of working on a series is you do that character work early on, and then hopefully that's just kind of a part of you. You know how you are as that character in those circumstances. I think it's Meisner, another amazing acting teacher who's since passed away, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's basically his technique was living truthfully in imaginary circumstances, something like that. So you create the imaginary circumstances, but it's up to you to help yourself believe them by making them as realistic as possible. Are there any questions around that particular technique of breaking down a script? Yes?
Alright, this is with acting together, because I've done acting. So have you ever been working on a character study and you find yourself becoming a character? You mentioned how you were a klutz naturally, but as you became to get more into Sailor Moon's klutzy personality, did you find yourself actually becoming?
Did I find myself becoming klutz here? Maybe subconsciously, because we reinforce those parts of ourselves that we sort of emphasize, right? So maybe subconsciously, but I'd like to think that you kind of keep a little bit of a healthy distance from your characters too, that you are creating believability within those circumstances, but that you recognize that it's playing, and it's not a luxury to be play acting and just maintain that little 1 foot in reality. But for that moment, that preparation and that scene, believe it, just go with it. Barring injuring anybody that you're working with, right? Or yourself. Yeah, yes.
How about when you're breaking down a script, especially when you have to eat and run at the same time?
Eat and run at the same time? Well,
do you have to eat something at that time too?
I mentioned that yesterday, that I sometimes ate because Serena ate a lot, and I found it very realistic. Running and eating probably wouldn't be a good idea. You don't want to choke, and not everybody uses real food. They might think I'm a little extreme for doing so. We all have our own techniques. So you figure out what works best for you. Now, I know some of you want to have the opportunity to maybe be on a mic, and I think we've got about 15 minutes left. So hands up if you want to give this a try. Let me just see how many there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we've got 1 to 2 minutes each, I think, to be respectful of people's time. And since we don't have scripts,
I decided to be your teacher.
Yeah, okay. But I'm going to limit everybody to say a couple of lines. Let's say a couple of sentences. And so take a minute you're going to be your own script writer too. Okay. So take a minute, and you don't have to be imitating Sailor Moon. If you want to, that's fine. Okay. And you can, but I'm going to ask you briefly who your character is, and keep it to 1 or 2 lines. And I want you to know who you're talking to, who you are, who you're talking to, and what you want from that person. And are there any actors who want to be an actor in a stool who are being spoken to, the recipient of this? Yeah. What's your name?
My name's Corey.
Corey? Hi, Corey. Do you mind having a seat right there, Corey? And you're going to be, if this was on camera, you're kind of what we would call the off-camera actor. So Corey's there to use as the person that you're speaking to, if you like. If you have your own actor buddy you want to bring up, that's fine too. So you had your hand up. What's your name?
Robert.
Robert, come on up.
Sure.
It's very nice to meet you, Robert. So let's put you right here, Robert.
Sure.
And you're in a scene with Corey.
Yeah.
And so who are you in the scene?
Well, I'm a teacher.
You're a teacher, okay.
Yes. And who I'm going to talk to is my student.
You're talking to your student, and
Yes.
what do you teach?
I teach, okay, this is partly frustrating to think about. If I had to say, I say art, because I draw.
Okay. And what do you want from your student at this moment in time?
What do I want from my students? Well, for one thing, he needs to show up, and of course, every student needs to show up class on time, have his equipment, his work, and any other studies or other things he needs.
Okay. So I would just like you to tell him that in one sentence, please.
Okay. Have you brought on, excuse me, I'm a little bad at this. Have you brought on your equipment, son?
Actually, just tell him, Corey, you're going to be a silent off-screen partner, okay? I want you to tell him what he needs to do to be on time, what he needs to bring, just like you told me. And we're going to talk about little mic techniques, so you're going to be a couple of inches away from the microphone, and that's all I'm going to tell you for now.
Say that one again.
Whatever your words are when you say, I want you, this is what I want you to be on time, I want you to bring your equipment, I want you to be professional.
Young man, I want you to bring your work. I want to bring your. I'm sorry, I'm a little bad at this. I'm a little bad at this.
This is all a learning process. We're all,
Yes.
Try it again. This time, let me give you a little direction, if I might, okay? Let's say it's the end of a long day, you're really tired, you're really aggravated. He's the 10th student who forgot his homework, and now he's going to get blasted.
Okay. What was the last?
However it comes out is fine. I want you to have your work, to show up in time, be professional.
Hello there, son. How you doing? Okay.
I want you to have your work.
Son, I want you to have your work. I want you to have your equipment and be here on time in the class. Do you want to make myself clear?
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Very nice. Now, that's good. And now, just to give, we'll just do one alternative in terms of interpretation. Let's say your goal now is that he comes from divorced parents.
Oh yeah.
And he's having a really rough time. And he's been doing his best, and he probably doesn't get to school on time because he doesn't have anybody helping him make breakfast. And so you're going to be more of a big brother to him and a mentor. So your goal is to help him.
So one of these I should
Say the same thing though, that's the trick. The script is the same, the goal is slightly different. So I want you to be on time, I want you to bring your work, I want you to be professional. But help him, be gentle with him.
You look exhausted, son. What's the problem?
I want you to bring your work. I want you to-
I'm sorry. Yeah,
It's okay.
I know, but I need to know why.
So I'm going to whisper it to you, it's all right. I want you to bring your work. Say it to me really gentle. I want you to bring your work.
I want you to bring your work.
Guys, I want you to be on time.
I want you to be on time.
And I want you to be professional.
And I really appreciate you being a professional.
Beautiful.
Very sorry.
No, did you notice the difference in
Yeah.
terms of the goal and the intention? Did you feel it?
Well, actually, I got nervous.
You got, for sure, we all get nervous, absolutely.
That's what I would expect if I'm doing voice. I get nervous. I don't know how exactly. When it's my turn,
Yeah.
I have no idea how ready I need to be, or what voice I need to use, or what words. You have a script, or know what words you need to say, like fast or slow. Or anything. That's my
Okay.
issues.
Why don't you sit down for a second and I'll talk about that. Thank you so much,
Yes.
I appreciate it. So
Yeah, sorry
we all
about
get
that.
nervous, and that's what these opportunities are for, if you want to consider this a workshop of sorts. And there are other kinds of workshops where you can get together with your friends or your new friends from here today and practice. And I bet there's some scripts online, or there might be a writer amongst you, and you can practice those techniques so that when you do get into a situation where you're auditioning, that it just becomes maybe a little more comfortable for you. And you did a nice job. That was a really nice adjustment. Thank you. Thanks, Corey. Why don't you hang out? Let's see who's next. Dana, you've been asking to do. Do you want to do Sailor Moon?
Yeah, 'cause I can't do actually Doug from Princess Tutu.
I'm Duck.
Okay.
Yeah,
So one month. So who are you?
I am Serena.
Serena, and where are you?
I guess Darian's house, Darian's apartment.
Okay. And who's there?
Oh yeah.
Is Darian there?
Yes.
Okay,
So
so-
Darian's gonna be you.
Okay. So here's your mic. Keep a couple inches away. And what are you going to say to Darian? What? You say it first, and then we'll talk about the
Okay.
goal.
I say, hi Darian. Hi, Darian. I'm trying to.
Hey, you
Hi,
wanna go
Darian.
out, so you want to get out. So you want to get out. Walk.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Hi, Darian. Did you bring me any sweets? You know how much I love chocolate. Oh.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So what would you say you wanted from Darian in that moment?
That I wanted to see one thing to see if he actually was caring of what my needs were.
Which were?
That I wanted food slash
Yeah.
chocolate.
Yeah.
And that he was thinking about me in that present moment. And maybe something else.
Okay. This is a lot to work with. That's great. So I'm going to take it one step further, and I'd say when you're breaking down a script, so you do your goals, and then a list of tactics. Actually, you know what? I conflated a couple things earlier, and I apologize for that. 5 minutes? Thanks, Angie. So the goals are one thing, the way you achieve the goals are a second thing. And sometimes they can be the same thing. But let's say, I'm just going to give you a couple of tactics. So your goal is to get the food and to know he was thinking of you. So I want you to flirt with him. That's your tactic.
Hi, Darian. Did you get me my chocolates? Honey pie? Please?
Very nice. Okay, very nice. And then we're going to do one alternative. And this time you're annoyed with him because he has forgotten your chocolates for the last 3 visits. And so you're going to intimidate him into
What
giving
boyfriend
you
are
some
you, boy?
chocolate. Intimidate. That's it.
Terrible boyfriend, I'm late for class.
Darian! Why did you forget my chocolates?
All right. You see a contrast there? Thank you, Jen. The giggle sounded vaguely familiar. Very good. So who else would like a quick shot?
Thank you.
Come on up. And what's your name?
Diana.
Diana. So tell us who you are and who you're talking to and what you want.
My name is Emily. I am talking to a teacher, and I'm trying to explain that I don't feel safe in school.
Okay. Can we leave teachers? Is that okay?
I used to look forward to school, you know, being on a team and all that, but now one mistake and you're tarnished. You can't be trusted again.
That was good.
Thanks.
Okay. So what would you say you were looking for from that teacher?
I want them to justify my feelings of being hurt, I suppose.
So maybe you're looking for empathy?
Yeah.
Okay. And did it come across that way to you folks?
Yeah. She did better than me.
Probably a little harsh for
Okay.
anything.
What if you tried to gain empathy, gain sympathy, really lay it on thick?
I used to look forward to school, being on a team and all that. But now you make one mistake and you're tarnished. You can't be trusted again.
Okay, very nice. Now we're gonna just add one more thing. You've just left the locker room. Your coach has reamed you out, kicked you off the court because you didn't get that layup, and you cannot believe one more time that you've been ousted because of that. And this is your friendly teacher, but you want to blast this teacher because this is a safe place. Go for it.
So am I trying to
So
hide it?
you're like,
No,
okay,
let
that's
it
good. You're venting, but hold on. There's probably a better active term than that. You're taking out your rage on this teacher. So you are nailing this teacher for this teacher's lack of sensitivity. Nail it.
You know, I used to look forward to school, being on a team and all that, but now you make one mistake and you're tarnished. You can't ever be trusted again.
All right. Did we notice a difference there?
Yeah.
Same lines. Very nice adjustment. Thank you so much. Somebody else wants to give this a quick try? Who else? Yeah, come on up here. All right. Do you mind coming back? And
I have an internal monologue.
you have an internal monologue. Okay, hang tight. No worries. Okay, go for it. Tell us who you are and where you are.
My name is Dexter, and I'm a mad scientist, but I'm also prepubescent. And this is an experiment gone terribly wrong.
Okay, go for it.
Finally, I have all the ingredients I need to make my super beard juice. Now I'll just take this drink. Oh God, what happened to me? I just have this really deep voice and oh no.
Okay, very nice. I'm going to give you one little adjustment. you have worked for the last 15 years of your life to create this special juice. It is the best thing you've ever done in your life. You cannot believe it. And when your voice changes, it is the worst thing in your life, the absolute worst thing. If you don't have your voice, you can't talk to the other scientists of the world. Go. So, okay, so your goal would be to ingest this juice, to celebrate this moment, and then to try to find a solution to this voice loss. Try to save your voice in some way. Those are your goals.
Right. Finally, I have all the ingredients I need to bring the beast juice that'll make me finally be able to appease the opposite sex with my beard.
Oh no. Oh God, no. What happened? This isn't what I wanted at all.
All right. Then I've really noticed an adjustment, especially in the second part when you were panicking and trying to get your voice back. Did you notice that too?
Yeah.
It's a nice adjustment. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Do we have time for one more? Is there one more? Do we not have time? Are we gone? Are we done?
Yes.
Okay. So who else had their hand up? One more person? Come on up. Okay. Thank you. So you have a fellow actor here if you'd like.
Okay.
Yes. So and who are you and where are you?
Well, Sailor Moon, but basically, facing the villain and saying,
Okay. And what do you want?
I am Sailor Moon, in the name of the moon I shall punish you.
Okay. Take the mic and go for it.
I am Sailor Moon, and in the name of the moon I shall punish you.
Okay. Now let's try a couple of adjustments. First of all, we're going to treat this as the first time this villain has been in your midst, and you are warning her. It's a warning this time. She doesn't know your strengths. She doesn't know your power. You're giving her an opportunity by showing how powerful you are with your restraint. Same words, okay? So warn her.
I am Sailor Moon, and in the name of the moon I shall punish you.
All right, that was nice and restrained. Now one more time, last time, and a little bit of mic technique. You're going to pull the mic out here because I want you to be more powerful, and I want you to use her an example for the whole negaverse. And you are going to blast her with your words, and by blasting her, you are blasting the entire negaverse as loud as you want.
I am Sailor Moon, and in the name of the moon I shall punish you.
All right, and now once more with physical activity, take a big breath. Big breath, and just let her rip, and use your hand.
I am Sailor Moon, and in the name of the moon, I shall punish you.
Yes, nice adjustment. Did you feel a little more force there? A little more? Okay. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope that this may have answered some of your questions. Keep researching, keep studying. As I suggested earlier, I think it would be a great opportunity to maybe meet just in the hallway, just outside this doorway, if you're interested in pursuing this work professionally. Exchange emails, exchange information, start to build your network. That's how we expand all of our horizons. And I thank you all so much for making the trip here and making this such a pleasurable weekend. Thanks so much.